Welcome to the Local Business Insider Podcast with the Small Business Owners Alliance. This is a space where we sit down with real entrepreneurs and talk about the wins, the lessons, and the honest moments that come with running a business. I'm your host, Nicole Redinbaugh, small business owner, insurance broker, and founder of the Small Business Owners Alliance here in the Omaha area. Whether you're local to Nebraska or just love learning from real-world business stories, you're in the right place.
Hi there. I'm here today with Mendoza of Bureau de Brie, and they are from a nationally licensed and insured multilingual firm that supports cybersecurity, engineering, design, legal, and compliance risk management. And so excited to have Bree here kick us off with this special podcast series that we're doing. We're doing things a little different this time and really excited to have her a part of it. So Bree, if you could, would you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and your business and what kind of problems do you help your clients solve?
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me here, Nicole. I really appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the work that you do with compliance and risk. And honestly, it's a lot of what we do as well. So we do multilingual cybersecurity engineering and design support. The cybersecurity part could be anything between penetration testing, making sure things are secure, and then also just informing business owners on practices that they should just be doing for themselves and they're also their team members. Additionally, for engineering, we do any back-end stuff. So websites, applications, if you have current existing systems, we help scrub those and make sure they're efficient. And we prioritize important safety issues and making sure that data is secure. That is our priority for sure. And lastly, we focus on design. So that's really also, like I said, just websites and, making sure things that are pretty, but also making sure that it's encrypted and making sure nobody can get into it. That is the greatest key in our mission and values at Bureau de Brie.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think it's really great that you help businesses of all size kind of understand the ins and outs of the security piece of it. I think as small business owners, a lot of times we start up and don't necessarily have a full grasp of everything we need to know. We started because we love what we do and we wanted to make a business out of it. But you wear a lot of hats between the marketing and the legal and the accounting, and then the security piece sometimes tends to fall by the wayside. So curious, in your experience and in the work that you've done, Bree, what kind of cyber risks do you see most small businesses tend to overlook?
I noticed that a lot of business owners are not realizing that simple securities, like making sure that when you're using public Wi-Fi, that you're not using company work. So that means going to a coffee shop for a network meeting, or even going to a local business, another business owner. Maybe they have a secure Wi-Fi, but with a password. Even with that password, an attacker can easily access that information. So if it was easy for you to click and go, can you imagine what else someone else can do with that information if they can click and go as well? So that's a huge one I notice, especially with small business owners, is we are out there, networking. That's how we connect with people. That's great. But we're not considering that we're putting this data out there on a streamline almost that attacker can kind of swim through. Yeah. And it's not funny, but it's like a serious issue because I see it so oftenly, and a lot of business owners would just shrug it off and be like, you know what? It's not really important. That's just something everybody else does. But that's exactly what puts everybody else at risk.
No, I think that's a great point, especially because it's the networking, yes, but sometimes people are conducting client meetings out in public. Sometimes, so many people work from home, myself included. We went remote, but that means that occasionally there's times where you've got to work on the go, whether it be in between client meetings or, for those who don't work at home super well and go to a coffee shop just to, get a little focus time. And I think that's a great point. So just to clarify though, so obviously if a business has their Wi-Fi accessible to all their patrons, we know that that's probably a risk. What about using a mobile hotspot or things like that? Is that still something that business owners need to worry about?
It's definitely important to use a mobile hotspot. If you're out there, I would recommend just using a personal hotspot on your device if you have one, but make sure you have a secure password. So it's not a common password you're using on other accounts. And additionally, you can also just use a virtual private network. So you could still access that public Wi-Fi and just connect your VPN and you're good to go, and they won't be able to trace your IP or save any of your data.
That's great to know. Yeah. And I think that's that's such an important step that we need to make sure that we're thinking of. So that's helpful. And this kind of leads into the next question, Bree. I wanted to get a little bit more of an understanding of why using personal devices in business in general is so risky.
I've noticed as a small business owner myself and even working with them closely, naturally, we do a lot of things on our personal device, whether it's managing social media, it's quick to, schedule a post really quick, or if you're out doing an event, going live on your phone that you use personally is just easiest, right? But you're not thinking about the risk of potentially maybe your personal profile is connected to your Facebook account and that's how you administrate your business profile. Well, now that email that you use for your business and your personal account are tied together. So do you have multi-factor authentication on that email that you're using for your personal? That's a big question. Probably not. Have you updated your password? Probably not. So these things need to be consistently updated to make sure that you're following and staying compliant with that. So you're not a victim of these attacks, because it's really truly so easily for somebody to just search up your email information and they could just try a couple passwords, especially if you're online posting photos of your children. And it is common for families to use, their child's name with their birth year, or even just memorabilia from high school, maybe your favorite high school, or just they can find anything on your social media, they can scrub it, they can guess your password. So don't make it easy for them to guess that.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the business profiles and subscriptions we use oftentimes now are starting, at least in my industry and insurance, are starting to recommend the multi-factor authentication or even require it. And that's been a process over the last, numerous years that they're getting more serious about. But I think that's a great point you mentioned. It's also on your personal account, like you said, with that social media. I mean, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I think most social medias kind of prompt you to create a business page from your personal page. So I'd imagine a lot of people are in that boat. That's a great point. And I think that, in some of the conversations we've had in the past, I know you shared a wealth of information. There's lots of things that you've helped clients do and kind of secure or even come back in after the fact when they've had a problem and kind of fix that for them. Have you had any kind of experience that you've seen where that has been a problem, where a client's gotten hacked on their personal account and then that's kind of tied into their business page being affected as well?
Yes, unfortunately, it happens a lot to local small business owners, and it's horrible because they have taken years, months to build these followers, maybe the reels, the content, that information that you have on those secure profiles, it's gone because they lost their personal profile and they lost access to it. So we have been able to retrieve that information for customers and let them know, hey, you know what? All you have to do is prove that is yourself and it's your business. And that's making sure that everything is registered. And again, a lot of small business owners aren't doing the proper registration either. So that's also how you have to protect yourself. Make sure that you are registering yourself with the state, making sure that you're compliant. And that way everybody knows that the business belongs to you. So when it comes time to claim it, they can recognize and they can identify you instead of an attacker just easily taking those followers. And now they're posting information and they're taking your client's money. And now it's breaking your reputation. They're not going to trust you because you're not securing your business profile and you have it attached to something personally. It's just not professional.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, even if you can work hard to eventually earn back your client's trust, having to put in all those extra hours and that time to try to rebuild something, especially if you can't recover the account, is, something none of us want to go through. We all get so proud, when we hit that first 1,000, 5,000, whatever followers. Yeah, that's something we definitely don't want to start over, let alone have that impact our reputation. And I think too, a lot of business owners, will start out with it being something that they do on the side for fun. Maybe they do it alongside a full-time job before they jump in and make it an actual business that they work full-time. And I think sometimes we forget to go back and remember some of those important steps. Just because you already have that social media profile doesn't mean that, you don't ever need to go back and mess with any of the security again. So good point. What are some other things that you think business owners can do to protect themselves digitally, whether it's social media, their personal device, or otherwise? What are some tips that you have that you've seen helpful for others?
I think it's really important to make sure that everything is updated, whether it's your phone, a printer, your computer, absolutely everything is updated. I know sometimes you just want to hit the remind me tomorrow. I'm guilty of it sometimes too, but there's a lot of applications now and even within our phones that you can set it up for it to update overnight. So I recommend everyone to just kind of set up a maintenance schedule so you can guarantee that your things are updated during out of office hours and making sure that you're getting those bug patches so that way there is no vulnerability points with that software that everybody's using. So just making sure you're protected on that aspect is huge. And it's seems like a simple step that everybody does, but you'd be surprised how many people are running on so much downgraded versions of a device, and you're like, why haven't you upgraded this? Like, you need to update this. It's so important for you to update it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Even if you've got like the auto reminder set up, like you said, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm in the middle of something important, do it later, and keep just kind of pushing it off. So I'm guilty of that. I know sometimes I leave too many tabs open and it's like, oh, I don't want to restart this right now. So
It's just data.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. What other things have you seen other than making sure that the security systems are up to date that can be a helpful tip?
I think it's important to realize that a lot of people aren't educating their team members. So it's good that the owner knows what's going on and the owner's doing all the compliance, hey, making sure you're not using your personal device, making sure that the passwords are getting updated and, getting on top of your team members saying, hey, we need to update every 2 weeks or whatever the standard is. But just because doesn't mean you have set the standard. So when they fail or they do something wrong or they click on a phishing email, it's not their fault. You didn't educate them. So I think the greatest thing that I see is the lack of education the business owners don't put onto their team members, especially small business owners. I recognize that because usually we're running smaller teams, we're running remotely. It's harder to hold those face-to-face meetings and be serious and be like, you know what? Hey, are you going to Panera to do your work? That's okay. Just make sure you're using your hotspot, Or where are you holding this meeting? It looks like you're at Panera. We're having a meeting all together. Are you at Panera? What Wi-Fi are you using? Like, we want to make sure that what we're talking about here is secure. And that means also, using secure meeting places. Proton is building one right now where you can have an encrypted meeting and no one can access it. Like, we need more availability for those things for business owners. And it's also financially accessible. So it's not expensive at all to implement any of these.
That's great. Yeah. And I think, that's the biggest issue is that sometimes it's a lack of knowledge of where to even go to do it. Sometimes it's a lack of the resources or the tools can be expensive. But sometimes too, it's just like we get paralyzed with so many things that we're working on. And so I think that's great that you kind of help those people who maybe need a little extra support or guidance to do that for them and make that easier, because I know it can be so overwhelming with all the things you have to do as a business owner.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess with that too, talking about employees, I know sometimes, there's virtual employees that people may use, or maybe they're not even a full employee. Maybe they're doing it on a contract basis, that sort of thing. So I think, to your point of making sure that they're educating them and keeping them updated. One other thing in the insurance world we were just talking about with a client recently was the importance of like having an employee handbook and making sure to spell out those expectations, because even if you do talk about it once and you're like, okay, my job's done, I've trained them, it's important, I think, to make sure you've got those standard operating procedures and the employee handbook and kind of some expectations of what the employee's responsibility is to protect that data.
That's so absolutely true. I love that.
Do you feel like most of the inquiries you get from your customers are kind of more after the fact when there's been a problem, or do you see customers like recognizing the importance early on and kind of approaching it more proactively typically?
Unfortunately, I definitely get the latter. It's people calling me when things go sideways or when things are just messy. But I do get fortunate enough to start off with a new business and kind of start fresh and build them so they have that strong infrastructure to begin with. So I have had the pleasure to do both, but most commonly it's when people need something for bad reasons, unfortunately. So that's why I try to, educate people on this preventative maintenance is what I like to call it, is because it's saving you, sounds like $5-10 a month now, but in the long run, it could save you hundreds of thousands in liability or even legal cases in the future that you could avoid easily.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think just like so many things, insurance, legal, other compliance factors, the technology setup, there's so many expenses when you first start up that it's easy to want to cut corners, but you don't realize that, hey, that little bit of money up front you could have spent to get things done correctly could have avoided the thousands upon thousands you could be exposed to in the long run after a problem, especially like just all the headache, of trying to, if you didn't have time to address it in the beginning, imagine how hard it's going to be to try to clean something up at the end, and the time and stress that's going to cause now that your business has grown and you've got even more clients and that sort of thing to handle. So what's the best way if somebody is unsure if they need your services, or if they're thinking, hey, I just don't really know how to do this myself? What's kind of the process of what they would go through to try to work with you and your team?
For us, I feel like it's important to make sure that their values align with ours. A lot of cybersecurity or engineering companies that do within the same field as I do, they don't highlight ethics as importantly. So whether that's holding the correct certifications to perform what they're performing, or they're not properly licensed or insured for the things that they're doing, it's kind of our greatest practice. That's what we do, is making sure that our customers know that they are protected with their privacy, and we are signing contracts and we're making sure that they know what they're signing, and we're not just making them sign something so they're agreeing with us to be with us forever. We want them to feel secure and happy with us. So the first step is definitely reaching out and saying, hey, you know what? I feel like I need to have like an initial risk analysis to see what's going on with some things. And we can kind of outline, you know what, we see some weak points here. We can start by doing this. If you need our help, we're here. If you don't, think about what you can do on yourself to prevent that. And if you need us in the future, we'll be here.
That's great. So is that something that a client, to get that initial risk assessment, is there a fee for that, or what kind of process what does that look like to kind of just get that professional opinion, if you will?
Definitely. So it's easily just, you can book on our website. It's a free call. You can take 10 to 15 minutes of your time of your day. It's pretty easy to schedule online. And afterwards, you'll get a kind of a printed summary of what happened during the phone call and our recommendations, and if you want to follow with them and what we could do to the next steps.
That's great. Yeah. And I think keeping it such a low barrier to entry is so critical. Like you said, it doesn't take much time, free to kind of get at least that analysis of what risks they may be facing. I think that's wonderful. And we'll make sure to include in the show notes, just for anybody interested in working with Bree and her team, we'll make sure to include her website and social media handles and all of that, so that you can reach out to her. I know that you've helped a lot of businesses already in our Small Business Owners Alliance community, as well as you give back a lot. You've spoken at some of our events before, but then also it sounds like you're pretty active in the nonprofit space and helping develop future leaders and that sort of thing as well. Do you want to share just a little bit about why that's important to you and your company?
Definitely. So I'm Nebraska born, and I feel like I've always loved where I'm from, and I'm proud to be where I'm from. So I've had always close ties in my community. I grew up centrally, so I grew up in the city half time and then half on the farm. So it's a good variety of understanding Nebraska, understanding how downtown Omaha worked. I went to Central, so having that experience of, meeting the diversity and, growing up on the farm as well was such a Nebraska thing. It's no one talks about how Omaha can be cornfields, and then you're looking at the city skylines and there's lofts. So it's like it was great. So I feel like I have so much love for my community, and my community has given me so much. It's made me who I am. I feel like the least I can do is give back to our future, especially the youth, giving back to UNO, because I'm an alumni, going back to my elementary, high school, making sure I'm going back to understand what built me and brought me here, and give my thanks back to those teachers, especially who mentored me. And I'm just grateful. Honestly, that's the least I can do is give my time, my experience, and my skill, because if I can provide that, maybe it'll push someone and inspire someone to go find their fuel.
That's great. Yeah. And I love that and have so much respect for that, that you kind of bring your roots into what you're still doing today and make sure to give back. I think that's something that is easy, that gets lost in the hustle and bustle of running a business. So
Mhm.
I really appreciate all that you do for our community. Um, Bree, before we wrap up, was there anything else that you want to leave us with as we close out?
Uh, I think it's just want to drop one more information. I think it's important to just make sure that you're being kind to yourself. It's important to stay compliant with everything. It is heavy, but as business owners, especially, just remember that you're taking time for yourself at the end of the day, whether it's, just taking a couple minutes to close your eyes and just be grateful, or maybe it's during the day and just staring at the sky. But I think a lot of us kind of, especially small business owners, we take away from ourselves from wearing all the hats. So just remembering that taking everything one day at a time, you can do it.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's such an important perspective, especially for those of us who spend a lot of time indoors or at the computer, that sort of thing, just to make sure to break away from that sometimes and get out there and spend some time for yourself, as well as give back to the community and that sort of thing. I think that's wonderful. So, well, thank you so much, Brie. I really appreciate you being on our show today and helping us with this mini series here. And to our listeners, don't forget to give Bureau Debris a follow, like, and comment on this video, as well as subscribe to the Local Business Insider podcast for more valuable conversation and tips from other local business professionals with the Small Business Owners Alliance Network.